Today on the show, we have none other than Chris Aquaman Carver. He's a senior talent sourcer over at BECU. He's also working over as an advisor at Lex Duo, which is an amazing sourcing company.
It feels very much like the John Henry story, man versus machines. Every week, somebody's coming out with some new tool, but I love the creativity behind sleuthing the internet and really building a search.
I think we talk a lot about earning a seat, and the fastest way a recruiter can earn a seat at the table is by delivering value. I think man can embrace machine and figure out, okay, what tool is going to help.
I think the long-standing advice of always be curious still stands. Invest in yourself every week, every other week, whatever cadence is going to make sense, but take time to learn and to invest in yourself.
Hey, RecOps friends, are you still losing hours every week to interview scheduling chaos? What if you could eliminate the back and forth, cut scheduling time by 90%, and actually get those recruiter hours back on the hiring desk where they belong? That's exactly why teams are turning to Rooster, the native interview scheduling platform built inside Workday Recruiting that finally makes interview logistics fast, seamless, and predictable. With Rooster, you connect directly to your Workday system. No extra tools, no disconnected workflows, and instantly let candidates self-schedule with one-click booking links. It handles time zone and language differences automatically, sends branded confirmations and reminders via SMS, email, or WhatsApp, and keeps interviewers, coordinators, and candidates in sync without constant manual follow-ups. And it's not just about speed. Rooster helps you see the true cost of scheduling inefficiencies with its TAS metric, so ops teams can track and improve the parts of the process that slow you down the most. Whether your team hires locally, globally, or somewhere in between, Rooster cuts errors, saves 10 plus recruiter hours per week, and creates a candidate experience that reflects the quality of your brand. If you're ready to stop chasing calendars and start hiring with confidence, visit rooster.us and schedule a demo today. Your recruiters will thank you. Now, on with the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Today on the show, we have none other than Chris Aquaman Carver. Chris is a LinkedIn regular. He is a sourcing community leader, somebody I've known on the internet for a while and admired. He's a very positive guy. This is actually our first live conversation, which I'm stoked on. Chris does some great work in this space. He's a senior talent sourcer over at BECU. He's also working over as an advisor at Lex Duo, which is an amazing sourcing company that is new in the space. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brandon. Happy to be here.
Man, I am psyched. Where are you based?
So I'm based out of Houston, but I'm a little bit of a travel aficionado. Started my professional career in Utah, moved to South Carolina a few years back, did a gig there, really enjoyed spending time in South Carolina, and packed up and moved to Houston for the hell of it a little bit over a year ago.
Awesome. What are you working on these days with BEC?
So I spend most of my time in the tech space. A lot of software architects, a lot of software engineers, data engineering, some AI software engineering. That's where I spend most of my time. I do work some of the corporate roles when necessary. If my colleagues are needing assistance there or have a heavier workload than usual, I'll help. I've done some marketing, some corporate roles, but most of my time is in the tech space.
I love it. We're going to get into Lex Duo stuff later, but right now, it's important for people to know a little bit about the context around the work that you do. So you are a sourcer. You are a technical sourcer. You are out there sleuthing the internet, finding amazing technical talent. I feel like the sourcing world is an interesting corner currently in the dialogue around people operations and recruiting. But you are one of the few, the proud, that are still sleuthing the internet, running Boolean strings, getting after it, filling pipelines. What does it mean to be a sourcer in 2026?
It feels very much like the John Henry story, man versus machine. I'm trying to punch my way through a mountain because every week somebody's coming out with some new tool and they're like, hey, we can do this faster, we can do this better. And I love seeing it, but I love the creativity behind sleuthing the internet and really building a search, and it scratches the critical thinking side of my brain of how am I going to find these people? And then one step further, once I found them, how am I going to engage them meaningfully so that from the get-go, I'm providing value? And so that's where a lot of the excitement from sourcing comes from for me. I've built a brand around X-ray searching and Boolean development, and that's my bread and butter. So I'm a little stubborn and slow to give it up and fully step into the world of AI because I still see so much value and so many people missed from just good old-fashioned Boolean.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing sourcer on your current title. There's a misconception, I think, around recruiting, especially the title of sourcer, is that sourcer is like a junior recruiter. And it's certainly a vital part of the job itself. But I
Mhm.
love seeing career sourcers. Talk a little bit about that.
I'm not a big fan of calling sourcers junior recruiters. I was a full desk, full cycle recruiter before I was a sourcer. And I built my foundation as a recruiter for a property management company. I was recruiter number one in the company. And I helped grow the organization from 400 people when I was there to when I left, we were just under 1,200 people. We did a lot of hiring, a lot of recruiting over the course of the 2.5 years that I was there. And that laid the foundation for me to be a successful source. I learned that data is king. I did not enjoy the phone screens. And if you talk to any of my colleagues now, like the phone screens is my least favorite part, mostly because it becomes the most repetitious. I've got a set of questions I have to ask everybody to make sure I'm fair and equitable in my evaluation. But I love the data. And so I love going to market and finding the needle in a haystack and solving the problems in a way that organic applicant flow wasn't meeting. So it's a different skill set for sure, but they definitely are in harmony with each other, and neither one necessarily precedes the other. They both can turn into a sourcer, into a full cycle recruiter, and a full cycle recruiter into a sourcer, because both those skills are necessary. We need to understand how to evaluate, how to assess data, but we also need to understand how to bridge connection, how to talk to people, and how to put the human into the process.
Yeah, 100%. And I love this idea of doubling down on your strengths and doing what you like. Chris, you
Yeah.
just told us you made a choice. You made a choice to recognize what you enjoy about recruiting. I think that's the cool part. Recruiting
Mhm.
is such a fun business function. So when we think about the team members that it takes to get to a handshake yes, they're going to have different skill sets depending on the size of the organization. And you may be in a role where you've got to run pipeline development and market mapping and even compensation analysis. You could have to do all of that yourself under the job title of recruiter. So it sounds like now you've got maybe a recruiting team that handles a handoff. Where is that handoff defined?
Yeah, isn't this one of the hottest debated topics? Where's the handoff between a sourcer and a recruiter? I still phone screen. I want to make that very clear. That is still a part of my job. That's generally where the handoff is between me and my recruiting partners. They'll manage the hiring manager relationship and the process as a whole. I'll do the active outreach, bring them into the pipeline, screen them if they're interested and seemingly qualified and available. I'll screen them and I'll say, hey, here's full picture what we're looking at. And if they're interested and I'm still interested after that conversation, then I make the handoff to my lead recruiter as they manage the process behind it. And so we work very much in tandem. It's a bicycle operation where we're both wheels moving with the same chain, but it's a matter of making sure that we're aligned so that we're getting the right people in the process.
Awesome. Yeah, I think back on some of the roles historically that I've filled through inbound or direct sourcing. It's all about having the right strategy and the right arrow in the quiver at what you need. And I think about sourcing in that way and Boolean in that way, and even AI sourcing tools in that way. Depending on the role, you may have a different strategy, or depending on the role, you may use a different AI sourcing tool. I think A B testing some of these tools is critical for anybody that's building a pipeline from 0 to 1. I think like the recruiters of the future that are going to be successful are folks who can build pipelines in 2 weeks. Hiring managers move fast. We need to deliver value as quickly as we can. But once we get through an intake, I think if you're going to be a recruiter, if you're going to call yourself a recruiter, you've got to go 0 to 1 on a pipeline and get folks in front of a hiring manager in 2 weeks, reverse engineer your pass through rates to know how many outreach messages you've got to send, and step on the field. I think we talk a lot about earning a seat, and the fastest way a recruiter can earn a seat at the table is by delivering value. And you talked a little bit about man versus machine. I think man can embrace machine and figure out, okay, what tool is going to help get me a response rate to get 5 great software engineers in a Slack message to a submit
Yeah.
in 10 business days.
Yeah. I mean, you've nailed it right there. Right. And I think it is very much of that. How quickly can we move? What metrics matter? I've had this conversation with others of, they're like, how many phone screens are you doing a week? And so I don't care how many phone screens I'm doing a week. How many qualified submissions am I submitting a week? Am I moving the needle in a positive direction? I can call people all day long, but that doesn't mean it's going to be quality. It's going to be meaningful input. So yeah, you're absolutely on the money. What arrow in the quiver is it that we need to fill the seat with the right person in a timeful manner?
I even like this idea of the recruiter of the future being somebody who can source and fill a position with a candidate that doesn't have a digital profile, even in tech. You think about roles like manufacturing, retail, even some probably like healthcare type roles where these folks don't have LinkedIn profiles, they don't have GitHubs, or they have purposefully scrubbed their digital footprint and they are a top percentile data science engineer or something like that. How do you find people who don't have a digital profile?
Oh man, that's the real challenge, right? Then it feels like with those, thankfully, I don't run into that a lot. The people that I need tend to still have digital profiles. But when we're talking about it, we're talking about some old school strategies. You're looking at registries of nurses who got their license recently that doesn't have a digital profile. How do I find them? Am I opening up a phone book or using contact finding information to get a phone number of a registered nurse who graduated last year? I think that's where we see a lot of those old school strategies coming into play. And that is where I feel like a lot of recruiting and sourcing tools are incredibly beneficial. I'm super grateful for my partnership with Seekout over the years and their ability to find people not on LinkedIn. I've been very candid that they're a vendor of choice of mine because I've found a lot of success there. But we look at other players in that same space. We've got Hire Easy, Lex Duo is, we're going to talk about later, is new to the stage. Recently was talking with the good folks over at Pin. There's a lot of really good resources out there to help you find people that don't necessarily have a digital profile in the traditional places people are looking.
Yeah. And when we think about these tools, it's not necessarily about just the number of profiles you can find or the outreaches. It comes down to what are those conversion rates? How many folks are you getting into that first call? And we're going to see more top of funnel precision. That's why I'm really excited about AI, is because AI can do research faster than humans. I'm sure you've had those experiences where you raise a rec and you've mapped the market, you've got your hit list of companies and geos, and you just start hammering. The reality is LLMs are fantastic with words, fantastic with research. They can put together those hit lists really quickly. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these AI sourcing tools. It's able to surface a better signal earlier and faster than human power, but the human power is what drives the conversion. So can you write a really engaging outreach message? Can you cold call at the right time and get somebody to answer your call? Can you get them excited about the role? There's so much nuance around AI sourcing that it's not is this going to replace humans? It's how are humans going to use this to be better at the human element? Because at the same time, we're seeing society like reject AI and AI slop and AI art. It's just like people want connection. So I think this is a great place and time for a recruiter to be a sourcer and to drive those outreach messages instead of just relying necessarily on inbound. But I'm excited to see perhaps a little bit more precision at the top of funnel. And then also how these tools A/B test against one another. So you're a sourcer, a Boolean guy, an X-ray guy. I used to scratch my head. Why does a certain query in Google return an index of profiles in a different order than Bing, and seeing what types of results you can get across different search engines on just a simple X-ray? So what are your thoughts there around like A/B testing some of these tools?
I think if you're not A/B testing, you're behind. You're not falling behind at that point. You're just behind. We need to always be learning. And I'm regularly A/B testing in my outreach messages in the platforms that I'm evaluating. I just put out my schedule for webinars that I plan on hosting over the next few months. And I've got one coming up in March that's how do you pick what sourcing platform to invest in? And I think if we're not capitalizing on free demos of these platforms coming out and saying, hey, let me see your product, let me see what we're doing, and then comparing your results and saying, hey, is this providing me net new profiles that I would have missed? You're missing the mark. Everybody has for 2 decades now been using LinkedIn Recruiter. I've been leveraging LinkedIn, and job seekers are getting tired of getting absolutely barraged by in-mails on their LinkedIn. LinkedIn also loves to limit who you can see, right? So if I go and I try to natively search in LinkedIn, if you're a third plus connection, I'm not going to find you. But if I go to Google and I'm like, hey, I'm going to run my search here in Google, and I'm going to run a search in LinkedIn, and I'm going to run a search in a separate profile. Let's pick Seekout, for example. Now, all of a sudden, I've got 3 different points, and I should be generating net new profiles in each one, even with the same structured search. So I think that's where A/B testing absolutely needs to be used. And if we're not using it, we're behind. And then the connection piece. I've openly shared what my sequence looks like or has looked like with reaching out to prospects. I did a ton of A/B testing to get to message number 1 of 5 that I'm going to sit and email directly to them. I'm not touching their in-mails. I'm going directly to email. And message number one took months of A/B testing to figure out what I liked and what I didn't. And my message number one is my most successful. It also happens to be my longest message of the entire sequence. We're pushing like 300 characters in a first message, and it's my most responded to because it's radically transparent of, hey, here's what the remote hybrid scenario looks like. This is what the pay range looks like. This is what the bonus structure looks like. Here's what the job entails. Also, I think you're interested because of A, B, and C, that this could be valuable to you too. But it all boiled down to testing. Was I willing to admit that there's something better than what I was creating? And the answer is always yes. I need to always be learning and trying to create something better and something more valuable.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the dynamics have shifted as well around things like X-ray search, where you've got a ton of expertise. I remember years back, I was running a ton of LinkedIn X-rays. About 2 years ago, that all changed. It was like winter 2023, I think, where there was a change in how Google was indexing X-rays from LinkedIn. Do you remember when that went down? And there's all this hoopla in the recruiting world and sourcing world where
January
like X-ray's
24.
broken. 24. How is X-ray still one of those like arrows in your quiver?
So it's run an X-ray search with every single search that I kick off. I don't run a search for any role that I'm actively working out without tapping into X-ray. That's an arrow in my quiver for, I'd say, two primary reasons. The first is I'm X-raying outside of LinkedIn. I know that people can be found there, but I want to find the people who aren't showcasing their work or who aren't being reached out to by a million other recruiters for similar roles. So X-raying into GitHub, a Stack Overflow, looking at personal portfolios, things like that. And X-ray is phenomenal at doing that in a broad sense. The other piece, and I already mentioned, if I'm trying to search natively in LinkedIn, it really likes to throttle who I can see. So I'm going to run an X-ray search so that I can still see the people that I'm looking for. Where all the buzz was about, right, was the change of the index and the way that they were showcasing profiles. And really what it boiled down to is we just had to change the way that we approached X-ray searching. We had to build different anchors into looking into the profiles, really tie ourselves to different data points on a LinkedIn profile that we weren't necessarily doing before. And so we see a shift in Boolean syntax and different operators that people are using now to still be effective. It's just different than what was needed before.
Yeah. And when you think about those anchors, what's fascinating is I had a conversation with Steve Liu, the CEO and founder of Pin. And he says what recruiters and sourcers say they do versus what they actually do on the platform can sometimes be two different things. Like we always search for the same 4 anchors in these platforms when we're selecting filters. And that's why I think it's important to understand like how this software is being built and how historically sourcing tools and sourcing UIs have leveraged Boolean as their filter logic. And that's even like how LinkedIn Recruiter operates. So to actually know how the sausage gets made, I think is just part of that insatiable curiosity. When I talk to other sourcers and folks that love sleuthing, you've spoken a lot about sourcing. You've spoken a lot about Boolean, the changes in our industry. What does the community mean to you? And what are some of the places that you've spent time in to invest in your own development and invest in your own sharing of knowledge as you've developed your career?
Yeah, I've been such a fortunate recipient of generosity in terms of knowledge transfer and willingness to share. I ramped up pretty quickly as a full-time sourcer and had incredible people in my corner to help me learn. As a result, I've really tried to transition that to giving back to the community. I don't own anything that I practice. This is all community knowledge, people that shared with me. And then I said, hey, I want to tweak some of these things. I wonder if I can generate different results. And I do. And I share that with people. I'm regularly messaging with some of my favorite people in the industry. And we're talking about different strategies, different platforms that we can try and find these people on and making sure that word is getting out on what that looks like. So 3 years ago, I transitioned into this, hey, I want to make sure that there's a learning platform and space for anyone that wants to dive into this. I started a webinar series and I've held a free webinar monthly pretty consistently for 3 months or for 3 years. And that's really where it started. My very first webinar, I had, I think, 15 people register. And I was like, over the moon. I was like, this is so cool. There are 15 people that want to hear what I have to say. I've had webinars that have reached 350, people in live attendance with more registered because you never get 100%. And it's still just all about creating a free space and allowing those that are curious and want to learn a space to ask questions. And I've tried to build community around that and to have those spaces. I think that's where we continue learning the most is when we talk and we're willing to share. I don't see many industries that are willing to share trade secrets quite as openly as talent acquisition, but I think that's where we collectively grow the most, and individually we are able to change our immediate environments is when we're engaging in those conversations. We're saying, hey, have you tried this? Have you seen this? What are your thoughts on this platform? Have you got different results from trying A, B, and C? And so I'm a huge advocate for that.
Yeah, it's great. I want to plus one the generosity I've received as I've grown my career as well. People like Brian Fink, people like Steve Levy, Dean DaCosta, Shannon Pritchett, Jerry Crispin, Carmen Hudson, Aaron Matthew. When I stumbled across Aaron Matthews' repo for how to be a technical recruiter, when I had my first tech rec, I was just like, I felt like I hit the jackpot. And when I met Aaron over the summer and shared that with her, it was eye-opening for me that she was building that in real time as she was developing our career, because she and I have similar length of career in recruiting, and then you and I are similar as well. So to hear from people who are just freely giving away information as they learn, that's why I'm doing this, is like I want more people to be upskilled and to be uplifted and motivated to do this work, because like recruiting has given me so much. If you told me when I was 22 years old that I would be making a living and have been making a living doing this, I just wouldn't believe you. I didn't even know it was like probably a career option then. But it combines a lot of really fun things. Like we get to connect with people. We get to scour the internet. I'm going to tell myself here, I used to flip Jordans and I used to flip like Supreme streetwear before my corporate life. And so much of that activity was sleuthing forums, finding people that wanted rare items that were only sold in the US, and then finding those specific items and being able to search the internet and scour by maybe reverse image search. Maybe it was a certain identification number on a piece of merchandise and to find the store that sold it. So when I got into sourcing and recruiting, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I've been doing this for years. I know how to scour the internet. It's just changing the syntax. And I think to me, that's so fun. But I think a lot of people get afraid of sourcing, or there's like fear in launching a rec and not having inbound applicants. Can you talk to any of that? Have you come across that where people are like nervous to source? Because I've never felt that way, but I hear from other people that like they're afraid to source.
Yeah. No, I certainly have never felt that way either. I attended RecruitCon, when was this? One? Digitally. And that was, I thought I was a good recruiter at the time, did fine managing recs, was making regular placements consistently. But I remember attending RecruitCon digitally and learning about tracking metrics and then learning about Boolean. 2021 was when I started Boolean. Everything else was just keyword plugin. And I was like, oh, this is a game changer. But it was overwhelming because all of a sudden the frame of the picture changed. And then as I dove into tools that were specific for sourcing and not just keyword plugin, the data was overwhelming for sure. So I think when people get intimidated by sourcing, it's simply information overload and trying to understand what is it that I'm exactly looking at. What is the story that the data is telling? And so my biggest recommendation or hope is that when people are in that spot and they're feeling overwhelmed by the sourcing data that they're generating, that they are opening up a dialogue and they're reaching out to an account manager for whatever platform they're using, or they're reaching out to a trusted colleague and saying, hey, can you help me understand this? Or they're posting on LinkedIn and they're tagging you, they're tagging me, they're tagging Brian Fink and Steve Levy, and they're saying, hey, I just started using this tool and I'm super overwhelmed. Do you guys understand what information it's inputting? Because people are going to respond. They're going to see it and be like, hey, totally have run into this before. Let me help you out. And I think that's where the overwhelm comes from, is it's generating data that's actionable, but we don't always understand, especially if you're new to sourcing, how to action that data meaningfully for hiring decisions for your hiring partners. And so that's where I imagine a lot of that overwhelm probably comes from.
Yeah. And it's like knowing enough to be dangerous and knowing when to ask for help. And one of the characteristics of recruiting that I've learned from other folks is to freely give. So if I have a pipeline and I know that the placement's going to be made, like sharing that pipeline with folks, finding other recruiters in similar companies, similar industries, just constantly paying it forward, because I don't know, man. Like, I'm a believer in some sourcing and recruiting karma. There are times where a candidate has landed in my lap And it's, whoa, how did that happen? We met the goal, we met the deadline, they said yes. And there are times where it's like, that wasn't me. There was a little bit of luck. And I love the idea of making your own luck in recruiting. Part of that for me is just paying it forward. I think about some of the placements I've made in the last few years. The ones that I'm proud of for like actually placing into an organization are ones that like I haven't gotten paid on. Literally just folks where it's like, hey, this person's great for that job. Or I don't know, I get excited when I talk to a recruiter and they're telling me about the recs they want to launch. I'm like, okay, sweet, let's go source.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm out here sending cold email for sport.
It's all for fun. We're enjoying it.
One of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier around these platforms is where I think the future of AI sourcing is going is not necessarily quality of profile exclusively. I think tools are going to be sticky, and we're going to see recruiters renew month-to-month contracts on these sourcing tools when they have great top of funnel. So that page one list is folks they want to outreach. But the reality of great sourcing is something we already said, and it's the response rate. So these companies are actually email deliverability companies, not necessarily data scraping, data UI, data front end companies. How good is your email deliverability functionality? And so that's what I'm excited to see is a future where maybe traditional benchmarks aren't what they used to, where it's send 100 messages to get one hire. Maybe it's we're going to outreach 40 folks with a 50% response rate, and we've got 20 in the pipeline, and we're filling 2 recs out of that 20 instead of 1 rec out of that 20 because we're able to see better precision in alignment for skills to needs in the role. And then we're able to see better response rates. So we'll have pipelines and candidates that are excited with less work and less misses. And I think if the recruiting industry can have less misses moving forward compared to self-service hiring managers running a process on their own, running their own sourcing on their own without us, I think we've got a chance at becoming those strategic recruiting advisors we so desperately crave.
Yeah, I agree. And you and I were messaging, and I shared that sentiment of I think the table's laid. We've got players on the board ready to go. New AI players, standing companies that have existed. And the conversation really has been driving that top of funnel of how many people can we generate for you? How many people can we help you find to fill your rec? And I think you're on the money. And that's where the conversation is going to develop is how many of those people can translate that data into meaningful outreach connection opportunities. Their deliverability is certainly going to be key. Because that's where the human piece comes back into play. AI can set the stage for us, but then we step in as the people, drive the connection, and see the success. I would love to be able to get to a spot where I message 40 people and make 2 hires. That would be phenomenal. Definitely not the case yet. We're trending that way, but not the case yet.
What are the metrics you are looking at and reporting up to your leadership for the great work that you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. We're in the middle of reevaluating what our metrics are. And so while I'm in the middle of having this conversation, I'm meeting in 2 days where we're going to come back to this and say, hey, what metrics do we want to try and finalize for this year as things to evaluate? I think in the world of sourcing, response rate is 100% still needs to be one of your key metrics. You need to see that your outreach is being delivered and that it's being seen and that it's being responded to. We have enough control in that to drive that conversation. I think the next metric that people really need to look at is your pass-through rate, right? We're cold outreach. This is all, I found your profile. Hey, I want to pitch you an opportunity. Here's why I think you might be interested. I think your pass-through rate is where it needs to be next. How many people responded and said, yeah, I'm interested in having a further conversation? And what percentage of those people did you screen or submit to be screened, depending on the dynamic you have with your recruiting partners? But how many of those people that said yes made it through at least the first round with the hiring manager? They met with the hiring manager. Hiring manager said, yeah, they could be a potential fit for this opportunity. Let's continue a conversation into a second round. I think that's the next metric that we really need to be evaluating at. Because if your response rate is in an acceptable range, whatever that is per industry. I know in tech, they say a lot of times, 25% response rate for your cold outreaches, and you're doing fine. I personally shoot for about 35% response rate. And when I get to that, I want to see, are they passing through? It's not enough for me to identify the right keywords and buzzwords on a profile and say, hey, this person's qualified, but Did they meet with the hiring manager? Step into the next round. I want to continue the conversation away from sourcers making placements with the caveat that if they are in a recruiter partnership environment, I think that's a key. If you're a standalone sourcer, that's your jam. Absolutely, you need to be evaluating your placements. But if you're working with a recruiting partner, I think that at that point, you need to see a positive direction in your time to fill. If the sourcer stepped in, they're assisting a recruiting partner with a search, I want to see that trending in less days open for a meaningful fill. I don't love the time to fill metric as a catch all. I think that encourages too much. Let me put a butt in the seat. But taking that historical data and saying, hey, last time we had this opportunity opened and it didn't go to sourcing, it took 63 days to fill this position. This time we brought a sourcer in and it took us 45.
Yeah.
Just seeing that trend of meaningful impact, whether it was the source candidate or an organic candidate or an employee referral, it doesn't matter. I want to see that partnership and then the trend in the correct direction.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you say that and say trend. Like, we want to be influencing a process, but at the end of the day, like, recruiters don't hire. We fill pipelines, hiring managers hire. We run a process, we help close, but we are not the arbiter and we are not the decision maker. So yeah, I think like recruiters can go in, they can step on the field, be confident, hone some skills, learn from folks, ask for help, pay forward that spirit of generosity. I'm excited for the next generation of recruiters to come along, folks that have 4 to 6 years of experience. Like I think 10 years in the industry. And I'm so excited for that next wave because I remember seeing like a news article that said Gen Z's top career choice was corporate recruiter. This is in like 2022, I believe. So that may have changed since then.
Maybe, perhaps.
After all the layoffs and realizing that, it's not as easy when your employer brand and a 75th percentile comp package do all the work for you. But there's so much joy that comes from sleuthing the internet, connecting with people, telling a story, hearing their story, finding out what goals they have, and seeing if a role is going to be a great fit. Thanks for chiming in too on your metrics. I want to share a little bit of info from the GEM Outreach Benchmark Report from 2024. This was toured last year. We're waiting on the 2025 report, but they shared that in 2022, reply rates were at 21.3%, and they saw a little bit of a jump to 2024 to 22.6. So you're saying you're running at 35, my man, you're a baller.
That's my goal. I consistently hit it. Not every time, but that is the goal.
That's great. It's spending more time with fewer candidates. And when you do that, when you spend a little bit more time researching instead of just firing off a templated sequence, or you have better personalization or do a little bit more research or find out some second degree connection that's going to drive the response interested rate, I think that's where you see those spikes. I'm looking at some of my own numbers here in a second sheet. I'm not trying to one-up you. I just like to be transparent too and share.
If you do, I'm not
the proof is in the
offended.
pudding. What is this? May 2023, response rate 50, April 49, March 75 on a campaign with 111 folks.
Wow, you were quite busy with that one then.
That one was, dude, I was hustling. That was actually for an HR tech company. I remember it. I just love keeping track of this stuff. And I love looking back on it now. Like that was 2023. I wonder what, I'd have to check some of my dashboards and screenshots I've had from roles I was filling last year. But the best compliment, I think, for a sourcer or recruiter is like, how did you do that? Having a CEO tell me, like, how are these people in your orbit? And getting that top of funnel number down where it's, I'm going to serve you 3 great candidates and you're going to be psyched about all 3 of them, not delivering 20 candidates to a hiring manager. I think the more precise we can get through empathy is how we build long-lasting careers as recruiters. The only way we get there is by giving a shit.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for people in their career that are trying to be like you and who embrace sourcing?
I think the long-standing advice of always be curious still stands. Invest in yourself every week, every other week, whatever cadence is going to make sense, but take time to learn and to invest in yourself. A year ago, I signed up for Mike Wolford's training that he was hosting. This was before the official announcement of Lex Duo even. And he was like, hey, we're doing an AI training, an AI boot camp. Come and learn more about custom GPTs. And I saw it and I was like, you know what? Like, why not? I'll take a shot. Let's see. Everyone was talking about custom GPTs. It was getting obnoxious. Everyone was like, hey, come try this thing. But I was like, you know what? We'll come and see. I want to see there was some intuition. I was like, hey, let's figure this out. I took the training and some of the strategies that he employed, it was still mostly custom GPTs. Don't get me wrong. It's still custom GPTs, but they were awesome. And they were things that I hadn't thought of doing and ways that it could change my workflow. And then it allowed space for dramatic change in the way that I approached my workflow of conducting industry intelligence and understanding what I was looking at, how to build more and cooler things. Like I'm building an application right now to help me with sourcing that's beyond custom GPTs. But it all started from seeing a training opportunity and saying, hey, I'm going to buy in. I want to learn. I see the need to invest in myself. And so I'd say that's the other opportunity. Investing doesn't always take money. As we've talked about, there's plenty that give freely and openly what their information is. But I'd say that's honestly my biggest advice is make sure that you're investing in your learning on a regular basis and always be curious. If you see something you don't understand, ask. There's somebody in the industry that has gone through it and is willing to share.
Yeah, I love that. When we think about what it takes to be good at recruiting, it's sharing information, it's storytelling. That's your cue. What's up with Lex Duo?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll come back to that. I attended Mike Wolford's training and I learned a ton. And at the end of the training, he soft pitched, was like, hey, I'm looking for a group of recruiters that I want to invest in this AI startup I've got an idea for. You've seen the training that I can provide. I would like to scale this up and have this become something that's meaningful, and not to steal the phrase from the Hire Easy folks, but it was for recruiters by recruiters concept of it wasn't developed and crafted by engineers in partnership with. It truly was built by those that have spent time in the industry and understand the way that talent acquisition folks think. And I was like, I think there could be something there. I like the idea. Let's meet. We'll have a conversation. So I bought in. I have equity in the company, joined the board of advisors, and I said, let's double down. Let's figure this out. That's continued to grow. He's now built applications, platforms for other individuals through this, continues the AI bootcamp training opportunities, but recently just dropped an application called Prospect Pro that you think take X-ray searching on steroids, that it's running it, but it's also pulling your contact information for you. So I don't have to try and find that separate. And the whole idea was that we in TA understand what we need. So let's invest in people in TA to build something for TA. And it's been an incredible journey. I've learned a lot. I get to work with some of the coolest minds in the space. I have a monthly conversation with Steve Levy, Mike Wolford, Dean DaCosta. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. These are people that I've looked up to for a long time. I really want to continue to learn. So it's been an adventure, and it's one I definitely have not regretted.
Yeah, love that. Folks I talk to regularly. It's funny. I was looking through when I went to find that dashboard about the stat about GEM, it was actually from a presentation I gave. And in that presentation, it was about Boolean to AI for sourcing. And on this deck, I'm looking at it right now. I shout out Steve, Brian, Shannon, Aaron, Mike, like literally these folks that are helping us get better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the fun part is a lot of recruiters love to workshop. What are you working on? Who do I know? How can we tweak a search and get the right results to get you to that submit faster? There's so much generosity in this industry. And believe it or not, sourcer is not a word in the dictionary.
I know. I actually started a change.org petition to get that changed. Didn't ever see it to fruition, but I started it and I had, I don't know, just shy of 100 people sign. And I don't remember what I said the benchmark to, but I was like, if I get to a certain number, I'm going to start just blasting emails to all these lexicographers and be like, hey, we need to get this into the Merriam-Webster dictionary or somewhere. So maybe I'll pick that back up and see if we can make it happen.
Dude, I'm dead. I have a petition. I literally have one too. We need to pool resources. I had no idea you did this. I have 101 responses. 52% of survey respondents say, hell yes, it belongs in the dictionary. 7% of respondents says yes, it belongs in the dictionaries. Regardless, we got 101 people that want Sourcer in the dictionary. We're going to bring back your petition to life. We're going to pool our resources. Let's get this thing going, man. That's hilarious that you did too. I love it. That's the beauty of all of this. It's such simple work. No ideas are original. We've got people on the internet out there doing our same work, so we might as well have fun together. That's what this is all about, uplifting and upskilling. Any last words? How can people stay in touch with you, Chris?
Drop me a link or a LinkedIn connection request or a follow on LinkedIn. I try to post once a week. Admittedly, I'm not the best at that. I'm not Brian Fink. He's an animal posting every day.
It's insane.
But I try to post once a week. I host a free monthly webinars. And I'm constantly trying to get back to the community. Don't email me. You can find my email. It's out there. Don't email me. I'm not going to see it. I don't monitor my personal email inbox ever. It's really bad. Message me on LinkedIn and I'm more than happy to connect. I meet with people, network calls all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. I did want to come back to that petition thing real quick. I started my petition, at least, entirely because I could not stand the red squiggly line underneath Sourcer every time I typed it into an email.
Exactly. We need to be validated. Chris,
yes.
I see you. I respect you. Your job, your title, you are validated, sir. You are a real recruiter boy.
Yeah. Let's make this happen. I want to see this come to fruition.
We'll bring it back. Are you going to any conferences, Q1, Q2? Are you going to be out and about?
Yeah. So I'm working right now. This is still in the works, but I'm trying to get to the Evolve conference with Anna Morgan in Atlanta this month. Like, we're in the middle of working this out, see if we can make that happen. So I'm trying to get to that one. I don't have anything slated for anything after. Wide open at the moment, intentionally so. There's some things that are happening in the background that I need to reserve some space for in Q2 and Q3. So I'm going to be very particular about where I'm involved in and what I do there. But Q4, I'm hoping to be at another couple conferences.
Heck yeah, that's great. And huge shout out to Anna Morgan. She was a guest on the show, gassing up Evolve, such a great group. And double click on Big Daddy Fink with the amount of content he distributes. He is just one of those beautiful men in my life. So Brian, thank you for the work. It's amazing to hear the impact from my friends, from guests who you're also impacting. So yeah, to see his work, such thoughtful writing too. I love getting inspired by some of the concepts. The one he did on Rick Rubin was great. The pop culture references. I think that's the human side of recruiting. And that's probably why he's one of the best technical sourcers in the game, is because he just understands what people connect with.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better. He puts out content daily and it's all meaningful. Every day I'm surprised that there's never fluff. It's always thoughtful, meaningful content. I appreciate it.
All hits, no skips, baby.
Yep.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for everything you do. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. I hope this is a fast friendship.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. Thanks for having me.